Since the beginning, people have dealt with questions regarding their place in the world. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Thinkers, artists, and even prophets have followed that quest, trying to predict what's coming. Predicting the future has become inextricable from an art as simultaneously visionary and business-driven as cinema. Federico Fellini even asked psychic friends to tell him how his movies would perform at the box office. Like Fellini, every filmmaker worries about the future, while constantly questioning their past. Such is cinema. Nobody believed that cinemas would survive when the talkies arrived, but audiences rushed to theaters and turned them into a second home, at least until the end of World War II and the rise of television, when yearly attendance dropped by 78% in just 17 years. However, cinema kept thriving, even when its death was again predicted when VHS went mainstream in the 80s. All sorts of apocalyptic visions were made. Still, cinema resisted, and while some studies found no evidence in favor of or against the impact of video, others found that there was actually an increase in some markets of people going to the cinemas. Despite all that, there's a secular decline in theater attendance. Even before COVID, cinema has been facing constant threats to its existence, from analog to digital to, more recently, the rise of the internet and film piracy. As such, the pandemic only accelerated transformations that were already happening. Because of the shutdown of theaters, the delay of film shootings, and the streaming market boom, a lot of changes were made in production and distribution models. The power structure shifted significantly, creating setbacks in the film industry. So what is the future of cinema? How can a film be valued? How can it stand out when it runs the risk of being just one more in an overwhelming pile of content at the audience's fingertips? There are no easy answers. However, as with every change since cinema's inception 126 years ago, the truth seems to be that theatrical is not dying, merely changing.
Hi, everybody. My name is Paul Miller. I'm the moderator of today's sessions. And we have two fantastic guests with us. The first is Domenico La Porta, who is the editor of Cineuropa magazine and is also an experienced journalist, script doctor, and screenwriter, and also has recently delved into the world of producing. And he's going to speak first and give a short presentation. And we also have the very experienced and highly talented Jay Taylor, who's a British producer, both of television and of film, has made movies such as The Hippopotamus from Stephen Fry's novel, Endangered Species, Rogue, and when working at 19 Entertainment, produced over 200 hours of programs for Pop World. So they're both going to give their points of view. My background is as a producer and as an executive. I've produced in the US, with the studios, independents, and more recently in the Middle East, and now based in Athens, and continue to produce and executive different shows. So we're going to start off with Domenico, and he's going to give you a little presentation, and then Jay will speak, and then we'll open it up to questions and answers, and hopefully we'll have a lively conversation about trying to predict the future. Domenico, up to you.
So yes, my name is Domenico La Porta. I'm 44, and I'm the editor of Cineuropa.org. That's a website created for industry journalists and basically the whole value chain of cinema, promoting European content across the world. We created that 20 years ago, and today it's still striving. We have a lot of visitors, and we are focusing on European content. Aside from that, I stepped into the industry like actively around 15 years ago, working mostly as a storyteller, first as a ghostwriter and script doctor, and today I'm writing my own scripts. When I was invited to this talk, around the same time, I read this article that really struck me. I don't know if you're familiar with Barry Diller, but as it says here, he headed two of the most important Hollywood studios, namely Paramount and 20th Century Fox. And for me, it was intriguing that someone like that would say that now, according to him, the movie business is dead. So reading the article, I tried to understand what he meant with that statement. And of course, he mentioned ticket sales, like it was also mentioned in the introduction, mostly because of the pandemic. And of course, they've been down because the cinemas were closed. So that was really mathematical. He also pinned the streaming, but in an interesting way, because Barry is also an investor in streaming platforms. So he's not totally against it, but he's comparing the streaming world with the world of actually going to a movie theater and the kind of behavioral shift that happened there. So as I was saying, Barry's mentioning ticket sales, the pandemic, streaming, and also speaking about quality, because according to him, the quality of the films has also decreased over the years, especially since streaming platforms started to produce original content. Then he says that also the whole promotional, the whole eventual circus around films is also diminished. Now you don't organize everything around the promotion of a film. Before, the world used to stop when a new film was going to be released, especially blockbusters. And today, I mean, this window is very short, and they don't actually invest the same kind of money that they used to. They are investing less and less in eventual promotional things. And he ends this article mentioning the definition. According to him, the definition of film, the movie itself, is problematic because it's very relative, and it's also linked to nostalgia. What we consider, I'm 44, what I consider being a film is not what he considers, because he's slightly older than me, to be a film. And actually, this sparkled the conversation with my daughter. She's 14, and her definition of film is also very different from mine. Of course, during the pandemic, the business of film was good. A lot of things happened. Amazon was buying MGM for almost $9 billion. And this is something that never happened before. I mean, something big up to that scale. And Netflix was also doing a great operation. They got a lot of subscribers especially during the early months of the lockdown. So for them, it was very good. And Barry is saying in this article that, again, the definition of a film is not the same for him. And he watched those films on Netflix and he thought that the quality was poor. He said it's more an algorithmic thing that lasts around 100 minutes. But according to him, it's not a film. It's not a movie. And so I recently showed that film to my daughter. She's 14, and we both agreed that this was not a film either. And this is, the first film that was showed in a cinema. Le Frère Lumière, arrivé d'un train en gare à la Ciotat. It's a short format, and it's basically a wow effect. So the train is arriving, and the people are reacting in the room because they believe it's real, and they believe that the train will just come out of the screen and hit them. So, and there's no story, the story is very minimal. There's a very, very basic plot, I would say, but this was called a film. This was called a movie. And we both agreed that this was not, we are not nostalgic enough to still consider that as a film because we were not born yet. My nostalgia goes back to people like this. I grew up watching those films, Martin Scorsese film of the 80s, of the 90s, and hearing him saying something like that, according to him, Marvel films are not cinema, also struck a nerve with me because, I watched The Avengers with my daughter at the cinema. It's the last film she saw in a cinema, and she was crying during the film. And honestly, I was also emotional. I know we are supposed to talk about auteur and independent cinema, but it was interesting because I kind of shared the emotion with her. And this is something that never happened at home, but it happened in a movie theater. So the film really worked for her. And I was lucky enough to attend a masterclass with Martin Scorsese a few years ago in New York. And he said something, he said, why do we make movies? So he asked the questions. And according to him, there were only a few reasons, actually 4. First, to entertain. And I think an Avenger, a Marvel film, is entertaining enough for at least for this generation. Communicate life experience, and maybe Avengers was not about life experience, but when you watch a film like Spider-Man, the coming of age of a teenager who is just a nobody and starts to have an identity and to really become a hero is something that will resonate with a lot of teenagers, with a lot of people. To state personal views about life, and Martin Scorsese films have been a lot about that. And eventually change the world. So cinema has been changing the world over and over again, but what he meant was more driving action. So you watch a film and it sparkles an action within you. You want to do something at the end of the film. Maybe you want to donate money to some organization because you watched a documentary that really was emotional. Maybe you want to call your daughter, maybe you want to call your parents, but there are always some of those little actions and sometimes bigger actions that can be associated with cinema. At the same time, I watched The Irishman in a movie theater. Netflix released the film in selective theaters. And it's a difficult film. It's a long film, it's a demanding film. And because I was just sitting there, I had to watch it. Otherwise, probably I would not have watched it completely. And I enjoyed it because I was kind of forced to be in that movie theater. Later on, I tried to watch the same film at home on Netflix, and it didn't work out. The film seemed like even slower than it was in the cinema, even though only a couple of months were separating those two screenings. And I couldn't get to the end of it. And I compared that experience to another film of Martin Scorsese, the same kind of format, the same kind of length, the same kind of demands, and same kind of structure as well, like Casino. And at the time, I also had to watch Casino in a theater, and I enjoyed that film immensely, also because I was forced to go through the whole film. I had the same experience with Mank. I was not lucky enough to watch it in a theater, but the result of that is that I didn't watch it at all. I watched 20 minutes of it, and then my phone started to ring, and I was competing also, with work. I had to get a glass of water, then the ring bell started to ring and I had to answer. Basically, I was in and out of that movie too often to actually enjoy it. And if you take a film like Zodiac from the same David Fincher, it's also a very demanding film, but I watched it at the Cannes Film Festival and I enjoyed it a lot because, again, I was kind of forced. That was the contract. I was in that screening room to watch a film until the end. So as I was saying, you compete with that kind of stuff, like the phone, your work, the ring bell, the PlayStation, the groceries that you have to do, and when you watch a film at home, it's very easy to press the pause button and to do something else to get back to it. But doing so, you lose the focus, you lose a lot of the construction of the film because the scenes, they are just meant to be watched a certain way with a certain pace, with a certain rhythm. And when you have this button on your remote, the investment is not the same. You press that button and you get content, and it's not the same than actually buying a ticket and going to the cinema to plan the window to actually watch a film. This is something we used to do. We used, when television was a live event, you would plan the moment and said, okay, now I have 2 hours and this is live, so I have to watch that film now. Now with the on-demand behavior, this window is not actually planned anymore. You said, okay, even if I have 25 minutes, I can watch 25 minutes of that film and watch the rest later. Or you think you have 2 hours and then something will take the priority and you only end up having 25 minutes, but it's still okay because you will press pause and get back to it later. The second question I had with my daughter was, how much is it? How much is it to actually consume content, to actually watch a film? And this is a very interesting conversation because, money is essential. It's essential to make a film, to finance it, but it's also essential in the consumption. Your amount of money is limited. So of course, you will try to use it as best as you can. And I asked her, how much is this? How much is Stranger Things? She loves Stranger Things, a TV series that started on Netflix a few years ago. And at the time, I remember that not for us, but for some of our friends, this meant $15 a month. The cost of Stranger Things was actually to take a subscription to Netflix because people didn't have Netflix yet. I mean, the majority of them didn't. So it had a cost, $15 a month. But by the time season 3 came on screen, Stranger Things, the cost of season 3 was free because we already had the subscription. For me, of course, I was still paying the subscription, but for my daughter, it was free. We didn't have a discussion about money when she had to watch season 3. And the quality of season 3 is way less than season 1. I think everybody agree on that. Then came Disney Plus, a new platform, and we didn't have Disney Plus. So The Mandalorian came out. She's a fan of Star Wars and Baby Yoda. So she wanted to watch The Mandalorian. And for that, we needed to take a subscription to Netflix, to Disney Plus. And again, the money discussion came on the table, and we took the subscription, and she watched The Mandalorian. And then very recently, Black Widow was released right on Disney Plus. So this is a film. And, we were not having any discussion about money anymore when it comes to film or TV series. And also my daughter doesn't go to the cinema anymore. And even though I was very anxious about that, and we had a lot of discussions about that, I must say that now, after the pandemic, and even a little bit before, I picked up her behavior and she didn't pick up mine. So I'm the one now who is going less and less to the theater. So that's something that is very striking for me. So she wanted to watch Black Widow, and I said, yeah, it's okay, we have Disney Plus, so watch it. And then she came to me and said, no, I cannot watch it. We need to pay $30 because there's some kind of premium access to the film. And on top of the subscription, you need to pay $30. This is very interesting because $30, it's more than what you would pay to watch a regular film in a movie theater. It's more than what you would pay to watch Black Widow in a theater, and the film is also shown in cinema. So I told her, let's go to the cinema, it's cheaper. We can watch that film in the cinema. And then she kind of agreed. She said, yeah, okay, let's do that, but we cannot go today, so let's go this weekend. By the time the weekend arrived and I suggested her to go to the cinema, she said, no, that's okay, I already saw the film for free. And she meant piracy. So we didn't really have the discussion about piracy until that moment where money was still a question. And of course, this actor that you see in Black Widow is the actor of Stranger Things. So there's a lot of connections, strategic connections between TV series and platforms and streaming platforms and cinema today. So superstars of the streaming world are driving the youngsters to the cinema, or at least they think they do. I think my mistake was to answer when she said, why is Black Widow, why do I have to pay for Black Widow when the rest is free on that platform, even though it's free for her, but it's not free for me? And I told her, that's because of the pandemic, and that's because that film was made for movie theaters. But when they made that films, they didn't know COVID would strike, and they made that film for cinema. So now this film is supposed to be seen in cinema, and if you don't watch it in cinemas, you have to pay more. And then her answer was, well, cinema sucks. It's not the film that sucks. It's the action of going to the cinema or having to go to the cinema to watch a film. And this was the complete opposite message of everything I tried to communicate to her over the years. And she still came to that conclusion, and I contributed to that because I didn't have the right answers to her questions. So 1 week ago, Titan won the Palme d'Or in Cannes, as you know. And well, I'm in Liège, I'm sitting in Liège in Belgium, and the producer of the film is my best friend. So I know a lot about that film. And so we were invited to the premiere. It was last Monday. And then I tell my daughter, let's go, it's free. So we are invited, and the director is there, and she says, is there going to be someone else that I know about? And I told her no, and she said, who are the actors? And Vincent Lardon is one of the main actors of the film, and she basically doesn't know him. He's not an influencer for her, even though he won a prize, interpretation prize, in the same Cannes. That's kind of a club for certain people like us, or like me at least. It's not a club for my daughter. She doesn't care at all about Cannes, and she doesn't see the prestige of it. She even thinks that this red carpet that they put on stairs is totally stupid. She doesn't understand it. She doesn't understand the people, the jet set, the pictures. She can also take a wonderful picture with her phone. So she really doesn't understand it. And it's a definition problem. We couldn't agree on what Cannes was representing for cinema. And my daughter is watching a lot of films and a lot of TV series, more than me. So I was interested in to see like who are the top 10 best, most known celebrities. So the people that are supposed to drive action, to put you from your seat at home to the seat in a screening room. And the only cinema person I could find in the top 10 is Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. And he's number 10. So he's basically soon out of the picture. And even though, we're not talking about auteur and that kind of cinema that I love, this guy used to be that guy. When I was a kid, Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone, they used to drag us to the cinema. And because we developed the habit of going to the cinema, and at the time that guy was number 1 in terms of influence, I started to be curious about other films that were also showing in the cinemas and in the cinema magazines. And this is how my cinephilia developed over time. And that's all about it, all about the habit of going to the cinema. Is something that I lost today. And we say old habits die hard, and it's true, but they still can die. And when you see the component of an habit, it starts with a trigger, something that tells you now you have to do something. For example, a trailer, everything around promotion. And no matter how much money you will put in promotion, you cannot beat the algorithms of the internet. These people, they will put less money and get more eyeballs than you because they master that technology. So no matter what we do, and I know it's important to do promotion about your films and to be clever about your promotion and everything, you will always lose that battle against the giants. And when I'm saying the giants, I'm saying the people that buy a studio like MGM for $9 billion. We don't compete with that money in Europe. We will probably never will. Then the action of actually buying a ticket and go to the cinema. As you know, today you can buy the ticket at home, so it's easy, and go to the cinema. It's still a loss. It's still a fail when you just have a button on your remote and you press play, of course. So we will always lose that battle as well. But the reward, the feeling that you have when you watch a film and what the film is able to do for you, this is something that relates to quality versus investment. The investment is when I pay a subscription to Disney Plus, this is my investment, and I want to get something out of my money, meaning endless content, meaning my daughter and me not having discussions about money anymore. I invest in that platform and I buy something out of that platform. I don't buy quality. I don't care about quality at that specific moment. My investment has nothing to do with quality when it comes to streaming. When it comes to a film, when I buy a single ticket, then quality matters. Then I want to be rewarded for the amount of money that I paid to watch a film. And then the question is more present. And the problem is that this question doesn't disappear over time. It's always a new question. Every time I spend $10 to watch a film or 10 euros to watch a film, I ask myself the question of quality. I ask myself that question before, and I ask myself that question after. There's not a moment where I said, oh, you know what? I invested enough in movie going, and now I don't have to think about that question anymore. Of course, you have subscriptions and stuff like that, but this is just a minority of the behavior. So this question is coming over and over again. But, and I'm not the only one saying this, the only place where we can compete with the streaming, where we can compete with Hollywood, and when I say we, I'm talking Europe, I'm talking independent cinema all over the world, it's quality. And there are a lot of cues showing us that we are winning that battle. I don't know yet what it means in terms of eyeballs, but I still think that there's still a lot to do, a lot of things we can do at the producer level, at our level, at the writers level, to win that battle over and over again. Because streamers, and when I say streamers, I say platforms that are streaming and producing original content, they are not trying to win that battle. So when you read somewhere things like that, and this is like a common cliche, saying that why is the content on Netflix so bad? Why is the original content so bad? A lot of producers are saying that, you know, and a lot of distributors are saying that. Say, yeah, but watch a film on Netflix, see how the quality is bad. Basically, it's not bad. I mean, it's bad when you compare it to the quality us as movie buffs are looking for. Netflix is not trying to achieve quality. Netflix is trying exactly this, creating a future of films that looks a lot like television's past. Films that you can interrupt, films that you can, you know, pick up later, films that you can watch or not watch, and you will not feel a frustration if you don't watch it, because there's something else that will replace your rewarding process. So being too good on a platform is actually not a good thing. Making a film that it's too demanding, like Mank or like The Irishman, it's problematic for a platform, because they know that, and they don't try to compete with your phone. They know that you will be interrupted. They know that the behavior, that you are not forced to be on your couch to watch a film. You will compete with this. And even the slogan, you know, the tagline of Netflix, the Netflix and chill, when they say that, what they mean is that basically watching Netflix doesn't demand you anything. It doesn't demand you to engage with the film. It's just something that is totally a layback experience. It's not something that is for, it's something that is for everyone, but it's not something that is for people that are seeking quality content that demand something out of you. Movies that are hard to watch. And I'm almost done. I just want to finish on this, on quality, because you know, we target a lot exhibitors and distributors, and we say, you know, exhibition basically should do more, you know, they should create more events, they should do something to drag people to the cinema again. But we have achieved a level of excellency in movie exhibition that never happened before. The quality of the films in the cinema, the price, the experience itself is basically excellent. You can very hardly do better than that. But the rest of the value chain, the development, the financing, the production, the distribution, there's still a lot to be done there if you want to achieve excellency. The problem of our industry today, in Europe at least, that there are a lot of films being produced, very, very loose curation. Producers are earning a lot of money producing bad films because they earn the same amount as if the film is quality or not, because they earn money during the production process. The curation also in the institutions, public funding, that kind of stuff is also very loose, not so strict. And sometimes if you achieve just a good average, even poor result in regular movie going, it will not work. For Netflix, for streaming platforms, good and average is what they are aiming at. They are not aiming at very good, and they are, or once in a while they have to, because they have to and they base their promotion on that. But excellent is really not what they are after, because an excellent film is a demanding film, and this is really not what they are after. So I'm happy that we have someone else here that is a producer, and we'll talk about his job, that is making films, because this question, I'm sure, like, what is the quality today of that business we are into is still something where there's a lot to do, and the better we will be there, the more battles we will win against a streamer, and this is how you will guarantee the future of movie going, watching quality films in quality places, but the quality has to address every part of the value chain. Thank you.
Thanks, Domenico. That was excellent and very thought-provoking. And as somebody also with teenage children, I understand that dilemma of what is a movie and why they won't watch the movies that you think were so great. Jay, tell us a little bit from your perspective as a producer in the ride that we've had over the last 2 years and how that's accelerated, I guess, things that were sort of on their way.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Jay Taylor. I'm a producer at the Electric Shadow Company. We produce, co-produce and finance films and high-end television. It was a fascinating talk from Domenico there. And I'm sort of trying to figure out the best way to connect into that from my experience. I think what was interesting was to hear, you know, how he communicated with his daughter about it and how that sort of changes his opinion. And I think there's a similar aspect for me in that my daughter loves Peter Rabbit, and she's younger. And that was the first film to come to the cinema post-COVID, or one of the first films to come post-COVID was Peter Rabbit #2. I wasn't like desperate to see that film, I'll admit, but I was really excited to go to the cinema again. And so we went to see Peter Rabbit 2. It was a very rewarding experience. I even got emotional in the opening credits, which was a surprise. But you know, cinema has changed so much, and especially it's been, I think we can all understand, it's been accelerated during this COVID experience to a point where we're all trying to, as producers, I think, figure out exactly what is our role in making films. I'm always finding myself trying to avoid using the word content as well, because it makes it feel so transactional, and does remove away a lot of the kind of art form that cinema can be. So I guess my experience has been in the sort of producing and development and releasing of films recently has been interesting, because we had we released a film 3 years ago called The Hippopotamus, and a very interesting, I'd say, just to give a few minutes on it as a case study. We had a UK pre-sale on that film. You know, I'm sure you guys know that films are often financed through different territories buying their rights to the film. And The Hippopotamus was a UK film written by Stephen Fry, based on a book by Stephen Fry, very much sort of UK audience focused. But you know, we felt had an international appeal, and it did some good pre-sales internationally as well. Our UK deal 3 months before the release, or maybe even less than that, with a company, a sort of, I'd say, a sort of upper to mid-tier distributor in the UK, they went bust, and they folded, and that was very indicative of the timing of that release of that film. I think around that time there were probably like 3 or 4, maybe more, distributors in the mid-tier, big names, big brands that went under, and that was just a result of lots of other industries and other businesses in the film value chain, that mid-ground just going, you know, just it's just totally polarized and bifurcated. So with Hippopotamus, we were stuck. We had a film which we knew was good. We had a distributor that up until that point had been providing really good notes on it and provided feedback. It changed the direction of the cut. It was, you know, we were really proud of that film as a group of filmmakers. And we still wanted to release it. So we took it on board ourselves to release the film. We put together a great team. We had a social media campaign. We had a PR company on board. We had a cinema booker. and we did it all ourselves. And we did a live event at the Hay Literary Festival, because it was a kind of skewing literary book, and we thought, well, that would work really well. It sort of plays into the target audience a bit. We had a Q&A with Stephen Fry, Fiona Shaw, Mark Commode introduced it. It was a great event, and we were there. We were super proud of it. It then live beamed to cinemas around the country. I think over 100 screens showing the film live with the Q&A, and it was a great event. You know, I think we would be incredibly proud of that had we done it in conjunction with our distributor. And of course, what happened was the cinema, the actual ticket numbers were pretty good on that event, but there was very little money came back to us from that. And so it makes you wonder, you know, kind of why you're doing it. And then we ended up, interestingly, selling the film to Netflix. Just shortly after that, we were able to do the theatrical ourselves, and then we thought that a Netflix deal in certain key English-speaking territories would probably be the best bet for us. So, you know, I think, you know, and also interestingly on that film, the cinemas where we showed it were not often the big multiplexes. I think we had some Cineworld sites. This is in the UK. We had Cineworld sites, which is a big chain here. And then we worked with our booker, a guy called Martin Myers, and he booked loads of small indie cinemas all around the UK, lots of local places, and he did really well, because our best site for performance on that film was a cinema called the Olympic in Barnes, or the Olympia, I think it's called in Barnes. It did the best numbers. You know, it would had a massive screen average, you know, over 2,000, I think, which was great for us. So it was interesting how you can put these films together and you can have success, but it is so tricky. You know, it's not just a case of making the film, putting it out there, and it finds its audience. And then just to talk about a few other films that we've released recently, just showing a difference in the business model, I suppose. We were exec producers on a film called SAS Red Notice. That was a premium VOD release. I think it didn't really play massively in the cinemas because it was like during the lockdown, but it certainly would have done. It was a Sky Cinema, and I think their intention with these big productions that they're involved in is that they would be a day and date with Sky in the UK. And then internationally, it's going through other partners. So that was an interesting experience. And then Honest Thief, which we had the pleasure of being #1 in the UK and US when it came out theatrically, which was a career high in many ways. But then you're sort of measuring that against the fact that there was very little competition when the film was released. So, you know, that goes to show that with that film, it was a Liam Neeson action film, and people wanted that. People were excited to go to the cinema. They hadn't been for ages, to go and see some pure escapism. And we're certainly seeing from our experience that action films are definitely the ones that are getting financed the easiest. And then 2 other films, Rogue, which recently came out, that went PVOD, premium VOD. It could have gone theatrically. The intention was to go theatrically. It probably would have been a slightly limited theatrical run, but it certainly was aimed theatrically, and found its audience online, did very well with Lionsgate. And then Guns Akimbo is a very interesting case study as well, because that one ultimately didn't play particularly well theatrically, even though it is a very large-scale theatrical movie. Just found its home through Amazon Prime most of the world, apart from some key territories in Germany, etc. But so that one just goes to show that these films are sort of getting there. They are finding their audience. It's taking a lot longer, and I think that we as filmmakers are seeing that it can take years for a film, once you release it, to actually reach its intended audience, because there's so much other content out there films out there. There's so many things to watch, but because also the message takes a long time to get through, there's so much other things taking up people's, taking up that promotion space. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the experience of releasing films recently. I think the experience of financing films, there's been a massive knock-on impact of that. Hopefully this will slightly adjust and change. But what we've seen is that because cinemas have basically been closed, the people that we're financing films with, the independent distributors, that are releasing the films, they haven't had any revenue for 18 months or whatever, 16 months, or it's been very patchy revenue, and so they haven't had the cash flow in order to give the producers the money that they need to go and make the film. So there's a very strange place at the moment where there's a hell of a lot of amazing scripts, because everyone's been writing for 16 months or developing, and certainly on our slate, all our projects are now ready to go. I mean, there were films that were sitting on the back burner of our slate for years that we just couldn't find the time to address. Now they're all ready, and we'll have all these, we're not unique in that position. There's going to be lots of producers in the same boat who are ready with some brilliant scripts, but the financing model to make those scripts is not really there. So how are they going to get out? How are they going to be made? I think that's going to be a very interesting thing to see, how, who's going to be writing the check for all these films. Is it going to be Netflix and Amazon, or is it a case that we just have to sort of wait our turn in line until these films work their way through the system theatrically, and we get to see the revenue come back on those films, and we can start to pay for our films again. So that's the sort of experience. I think what's the last thing I'd say is on this, just for now, is that there's a massive joy in watching something that has a beginning, middle, and end, and lots of people actually don't really mind if the film is particularly brilliant, but being told a story that has a beginning, middle, and end in one sitting is something that we've sort of gotten out of the habit of with these big, long returning series. And I think I sort of feel like, certainly in our household anyway, there's a little bit of a move away from watching binge watching stuff, and there's something really nice about being able to sit down for an hour and a half and just be told a story. And I think that should hopefully drive a bit more of a return to cinema narratively. Whether that will mean that we watch them at home or in the theatre, I'm not entirely sure, but hopefully there'll be a good mix of that.
Thanks, Jay. That was great. It was great to get a sort of a personal experience of your dealing with this very shifting landscape. And something that occurred to me in taking sort of Domenico's thesis, shall we say, for this talk, is that it occurs to me that there's a difference between what, let's just say, we're in the world of making quality content, and maybe we can speak a little bit about, somebody asked the question of which signs are that the quality battle is being won. But maybe we just talk for a moment from a producer's experience of, like, you have quality films that you want to get made, but that's not what you can get made. What you can get made is an action movie. What you can get made is a series. The quality gem that you have that might win the Palme d'Or is much more difficult to make. So what is a filmmaker, when that includes producers and directors or even writers, do you write that great script that's going to win the Palme d'Or, or do you write something that you hope is a spec script for Netflix? So how do we, from a filmmaker point of view, how do we address this sort of quality issue and the ability to pay the mortgage?
I think, I mean, I'm not, I also love to be entertained as well as make a good film. So for me, I'm not, I think what it is a sort of a mixed approach. You have to have on your slate of films, rough numbers, a quarter is high top brow, very quality, and then you have a mix of the stuff that's going to pay the bills, or the stuff, I certainly wouldn't advocate making anything that is not good, you know, just for the sake of money. These projects take far too much time of your own life to waste on making something that you're not proud of. You know, unintentionally that can end up happening, obviously, but I think having a good balance is important, because you have to be realistic about it. There's no point trying to there's very little point in trying to sketch out, you know, a long career making films that are never going to make money. You know, I mean, it's still these films that are winning Palme d'Ors and big festival films that are having massive success. You would be, you know, we get to see some of the numbers on it, and they don't break even. So, you know, you can still have a brilliant movie. It can still do really well. It can still enter its way into the zeitgeist. It can, you know, but it can still not make the people their money back. And that's not a sustainable career in anything. So I think having a balance of, you know, I mean, the films that we've focused on developing, generally speaking, if they match that kind of, it's a more esoteric, you know, thematic experience, they should be made for very little money, and then, you know, and then it doesn't really matter that much if they're a big loss. Because you can sort of measure that against the films that are bigger budget, more, you know, more easy to find their audience. And so I think you, as a producer, it's not only having the diversification of genres on your slate, but also having the diversification of mediums as well is important. You have to have some high-end TV on there. Experience recently has been that we were able to get paid development greenlit in a matter of weeks on TV, whereas you're talking about months or years in film to get paid development. So it's funny, because you sort of spend ages trying to strategize and think about what's going to work, and then it's pretty obvious. You know, I mean, high-end TV is the medium that most people, I guess, are watching, because there's was watching. And that's what people want, and Netflix know that people are watching probably fewer episodes of something, because there's so much stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so gone are the sort of 10 episodes. Now you're sort of looking at maybe 3 episodes, or, you know, returning limited series stuff.
But imagine that what you are saying. Sorry, I'm interrupting, but what you are saying here is that basically you talk about flexibility and plasticity and the agility of these industries, because you just said, one, we've been able to get the financing very fast in the TV world. 2, Netflix is seeing that maybe 12 episodes doesn't work, and then it adapts right away and start commission content that is 4 episodes or 8 episodes in a very, very short amount of time. When in cinema, imagine, as soon as you touch format, it takes years, it takes decades to adapt that format, because, you know, you have windows, you have slots, you need to sell that amount of ticket every day with the an amount of screening that you have to plan ahead. But these worlds, I'm talking about streaming and TV, they have more agility, and this is something that is quite impressive. For example, I give you like a very recent example. It's just this week. You know, Titan won the Palme d'Or, and it was streamed in Cannes, and then the next day it was in the cinemas in France. So basically everybody could watch the film. It didn't win the Palme d'Or yet, but the film was in theaters. So a lot of people went there because of the Cannes effect. You know, there was a lot of promotion, and then it won the Palme d'Or, and it doubled the attendance in the screening rooms. This is something that was public. This is something that was available for all the other distributors that already bought the film in Europe, okay? And yet in Belgium, they planned the release on the 28th of July, and they couldn't move that release 1 week ahead. It was too hard. It was too, you know, contracts were signed. There was windows. They couldn't do it. But because of that, we are only 1 week after the Palme d'Or. The film is not released yet in this country. And there's a Belgian co-producer on the film. The film will be released in 2 days. I'm sure that the Palme d'Or effect is already drawn off. I mean, at 80% of it, because so many things happened during this week, you know, and they couldn't benefit from that. They couldn't be reactive enough. When Netflix, they just flip a switch and then the film all of a sudden is available in 183 territories. Because they say, okay, something is happening, that director has died, boom, let's push his films on the platform right away. And this is something we cannot do in films. And it's sad because we should really find a way to rethink this industry so that it's more agile, like everything else actually in the world.
Yeah. I was thinking, yeah, it's interesting. You're absolutely right. And I think that I was also reading over the weekend about Netflix's push into gaming, which I think is another aspect that's, it's such a luxury for them to be able to think, well, this is obviously there's some buzz around this. I mean, not that gaming buzz is particularly new, but there's the technology has made it possible that we can just announce that we're going to get into gaming, and they flick a switch, and now they're able to offer, a gaming experience of Stranger Things, or of their IP that they have, and all that's going to do is I think it's a really smart move. I was really interested in that. I thought it shows that they're really thinking about what's next.
And you know where they come from, huh? They don't come from producing original content. I mean, they used to rent DVDs. So, they don't really care, but they come from distribution, and then they became producers, and now they will become game makers. They fund games as well. You can go to Netflix with an original idea about a game, and they might fund it. So
sorry, can I interrupt 1 second to say that I like this idea that's sort of becoming delineated here. There's one is the making of quality projects and how those get funded. The second, as Domenico just said, is how do we change the experience of watching that? And there are and some of that has to do, I think, with curation. And there's the Netflixes, which we've sort of been knocking generally, but there are also dedicated, let's say, Mubi or something like that. We try and recreate a Netflix experience for people of quality films. And
honestly, if it's supposed to be an experience from your home, it just won't work. Yeah. It's the same than buying a Blu-ray or a DVD. You put it in the player, and then unless you plan 2 hours to watch the film, you will always be interrupted. And every time you will be interrupted, it will have priority on your experience. Anything. Like your girl screaming upstairs, the delivery guy bringing the pizza, it has priority over your experience at home, because you know that your experience at home can be interrupted and picked up anytime you want. Even if the phone rings, you said, oh, now it's the time, it's more urgent, I have to answer that call. And in the cinema, it's different because you have all those rules that are also drawing off. I don't know if you had the experience to going to a cinema in LA or in Texas, and then people are talking and then answering the phone during the screening. They don't care because the experience at home has overlapped on the experience in cinema. It's what I was saying before. My daughter's behavior now is the behavior that I picked up, and not the other way around, because it's just more fluent, more normal with the world we are living in today.
I think that's true, but I guess my question is about what could one do to make the sort of cinema experience attractive again?
To me, honestly, I already said it has to. It's linked to quality, and I saw that someone was saying, yeah, you said there were cues that we are winning the quality battle. There are, when people as a normal way of defense are saying, yeah, but the films on Netflix are just bad, or they don't know how to produce films, and this cliche is around, it means that we are winning the quality battle. Another thing you can also very easily check is that, I was speaking during an interview with Bong Joon-ho, the Korean director, and he had just won the Palme d'Or, and he told me, yes, I told him, like, what is the film that you feel didn't have enough exposition? Like, you made that film and not enough people saw it. Now everybody's on Parasite, but you made other films before, and it must be frustrating that those films were not watched by so many people. And he said, no, a lot of people are telling me Okja, the film he did for Netflix, is my worst film. And he says, I agree, but when I made that film, it was my best film. And nobody told me it was bad. And you know what? This is curation. I mean, he went with a script. They said, okay, we like it, let's do it. And he was, as a maker, he was and that's also my case. When I go with a script to a producer, I'm sure I wrote the best script, at least the best I could do. And I need this curation. I need those obstacles, like in any stories. I need people telling me, you know what, it's not that good. I need to be disappointed. I need to get back to work to produce better quality. And when he went to Netflix with that project, he had, like the best actors involved. The funding was in place. He said we only had 2 drafts of the script, 2. I don't know if Jay, how many drafts you need before the film is even getting a green light, and they just had 2. It was okay. And they made it. And of course, it's his worst film, but, he didn't know at the time. So quality, it's at every level. I mean, a filmmaker always wants to do quality. I mean, all the makers, we always want to do quality, also producers, but we need the obstacles. We need a sales agent that tells you, I don't think it's so good. I mean, you pitched me a film that you think it's good, but I think it's not good. And then it makes you rethink your work and be better, always better. And this is something that is not so much happening on those circuit, on those pipelines of productions that streamers are doing, and that for decades, TV was also practicing, when the years of sitcom television, and it took like HBO and networks like that to basically apply the same level of curation. And then when they said that, they said it's not TV, it's HBO, because TV had this pejorative, it had this bad image that what is on TV is not good quality. And they had to go a different way, and that way was quality.
I think also what's something interesting is that, the movie star is, I thought, one of your slides commented on star power. And actually what you've got now is you've got these very big franchises of Marvel films. I mean, mostly, I guess, superhero movies, who have these amazing actors in, but they're not marketed with those people in the front. They're marketed as the franchise film, right? And mostly. So you've got these fantastic actors who then you can't, very strangely, you can't also finance a normal film, an independent film with in the front, because they're not really getting the push that they would get. I mean, they don't mind, they're getting paid a lot of money to be in the Marvel films, but the Marvel films, or all those type of superhero movies, are marketed on the basis of a brand recognition, and so you might have an actor like, I mean, I'm just thinking like Loki, for example, Tom Hiddleston. He's a bit of a strange example because you probably could finance a film with Tom Hiddleston in the front, but there's a lot of these actors who are in these films who have major roles.
Yeah, look at Captain America. I mean, Chris Evans, the people want to see him as Captain America. They don't care about this guy in any other. It's like, in the years of Twin Peaks, Cal McLellan, the people didn't want to see that guy outside of Dale Cooper. It's just typecast at the ultimate level. And even though those people are superstars, once they do these Marvel films and they are identified to a character, basically, yes, they are rich, they can do whatever they want afterwards, but what they cannot do is step into independent cinema and try to make a career for themselves playing other roles. It's just, there are no Brad Pitts, there are no Tom Cruise. It just doesn't happen anymore. And in that sense, these films, they changed the world. They changed the way, I mean, for example, Iron Man changed Hollywood. Pixar changed Hollywood. You were mentioning before, like, yeah, of course, you can do entertaining stuff, but Pixar did entertaining stuff at the ultimate level of quality. And, they got recognition, critical, and also public, and it just worked. And by doing that, they changed the whole world of animation because they raised the bar of quality higher than what we used to have at the time. And this is what we have to be able to do. And I don't think it's about blockbuster or not blockbuster. You have a low budget film that are super high quality, but as you said, it will probably take longer to reach your audience. And since you are judged today on your results right away, if you want to make a second film, they will look at the numbers of the first film. You don't have 5, 6, 7 years to wait until your film becomes a cult classic.
I have a question here from one of the audience saying, I have a question about the audience. Do you think there still will be a cinema audience willing to watch high quality movies when so many people are satisfied with the Netflix quality and the new generation is raised on Netflix style productions?
I'm not actually satisfied with the Netflix quality, I must say, but I'm on a cinema level, I'm not. But then there's a lot of satisfaction in this. You know, like for example, when I mention a film from my film history to my daughter, she can watch it right away. And we don't have to go out and buy it on the Blu-ray or DVD. You know, right away she said, well, we were talking about Back to the Future. And then she said, oh, wow, really? Is that good? Because you pitched it to me so well. And then on the next hour, she was watching Back to the Future, you know, and it's in that sense, I'm very satisfied with the Netflix quality and the Netflix experience. But of course, you know, as it was said at the beginning of my presentation, I still have this nostalgia of watching a film in a cinema, having the experience, you know, with a girlfriend or with friends, but also this emotional experience that I got in the cinema that I very rarely had at home, even though I'm a professional movie watcher. You know, I used to watch 500 films every year. It was my job to watch films, was paid to do that. So I don't think that we're getting back to that. I don't think so. This habit is gone, but we can create new habits. We can create new experiences. The cinemas, they are still there. Of course, they cost money and they need people to go and watch those films. So it has to happen now. And for example, on a personal note, you know, I'm really against this decision of Cannes to kick out Netflix out of their competition because they didn't want to release films in cinemas. For me, it's just like a local rule that became international, and it's just a fight that is not the right fight. I hope, and I have no certainty that people like my daughter, at some point, she will want to go back to the cinema for something, but for what? Not for the content, because right now she has access to content anywhere she is. Not really for the experience with a boyfriend or whatever, because they do something else. They meet on Instagram or I don't know where. And then, you know, this is also an experience for them. But I hope something in the future will come that will, and I'm not talking about luxury, because, you know, a lot of people are saying, yeah, but cinema is a luxury experience. No, getting a subscription to Disney Plus is a luxury experience, because you get the subscription that you pay $30 for a premiere. That's luxury. You know, this is where you pay most of the money. No, something else that will make cinemas an essential place. And I'm not talking about behavior here, but a place that people will desire enough to go to and to be rewarded when they get out. So far,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I just mean that so far I don't see it.
But I think one thing we touched upon was this idea of maybe for the Netflix world of being very passive. It requires a passive audience intellectually. And whereas the cinema of quality requires a active, you know, emotional or intellectual experience, and maybe going back to this question is the idea that is there a sense that we have to re-educate audiences to not just be passive, but to want to engage more actively with cinema, which requires using your brain, but also maybe getting off your ass and going to the cinema?
And it's a very good question, and I'm afraid that I'm not the one saying, you know, and I see that with my daughter, that today kids are passive. They've been more active than ever. You know, Google is an active thing. You go on Google and you have to type something in that search engine because you're looking for something. It's not that, you know, at the beginning of the internet, when I started using it, I had this Yahoo menu and I didn't dare going out of it. You know, I was basically consuming what that Yahoo menu was giving me because I didn't have this active mentality. Of course, I was buying magazines and I was active for cinema, but I was not active in my consumption habits. My daughter, she's active in a lot of things, a lot. But when it comes to watching a film, she does it for chilling. She doesn't do it because she wants to be challenged. She has so many other opportunities to be challenged intellectually as well. And I think that that is the spot where the battle is lost so far. It doesn't mean that we can win the next one, but honestly, she's way more challenged playing a video game for 70 hours straight. And I'm talking about a narrative game, you know, with a real story, with writers attached and $150 million on board, than watching a 2 hours film that just her dad is telling her it's so good, you have to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think as well, the fact that the audience, you know, predominantly is going to, what you're aiming for is a younger audience if you're trying to drive them to do stuff that it requires people's time and energy, you know, and obviously as you get older, you've got less time to spend doing things that you kind of want to do because you've got other responsibilities. And so you're trying to fight a slightly unwinnable battle at the moment, because the audiences are finding out about content mostly through social media, probably. And so there's this sort of feedback loop of you're not able to reach them because you haven't really got the right message as well. And they've got, and also, you know, young people have so many other things that they want to do as well. It's not that they have tons of time. They've actually got, their time is also precious. So going to the cinema, spending half an hour getting there, and then, you know, and then all the hassle around all that and the money and everything, I think they just feel that they've got other things that they can do. And you know, and it's not that they feel that they do, there actually are loads of other things that they can do.
But I think there's one thing, maybe just because we'll sort of wrap up in a minute, but one thing that occurs to me is that, you know, nowadays people say, I'm going to go home and watch Netflix. They don't know what they're going to watch. They're just going to watch something because they want to spend it, whether it's an hour or 2 hours, just doing something, but it's Netflix. And when I was a kid, my mom would take me on Saturdays to the cinema and dump us at the cinema to watch whatever the double feature was. That's what we did. You know, I don't know what she went shopping or something like that. And so there's this notion, using that idea, there's this notion that we could curate a world of quality cinema some way where you knew that, and I'm just using movie because that's on top of my head, but maybe there's another one that's better, or as somebody was asking here, some independent cinemas offer virtual screenings where you say, oh, I'm going to go to X and I know I will be given a quality film to watch because it will be curated for me. It occurs to me, you know, because you can watch anything at any time, anywhere in the world. How do you know what to watch? And if there's a way to, and I guess my question is curation on some level, perhaps the key to keeping quality cinema alive, whether it's at the cinema or even, I guess, at home in your home cinema.
I read something interesting recently about Disney looking at the theatrical experience and thinking about whether there's a world in which the multiplex becomes a sort of like a whole Disney, you know, it's almost like a mini theme park, you know, with a cinema joined into it. And there are problems around competition rules and stuff like that. But I was quite into that idea on the surface when I read it, because it just feels to me like it breathes new life into going to the cinema in a way that, you know, you go to the cinema now, you still pay a lot of money and you might actually get Cinema 7 or 8, right? Which is not much bigger than your TV at home. Fair enough, you've got better sound, but it is kind of lame. And you know, when you go to cinema, what you want is like the massive screen, and sometimes you don't even get that. So I think, you know, IMAX still is a brilliant cinematic experience. I think that is, you know, I'd love to make a film for IMAX, for example, because I think that is a technology that really does drive people. But, you know, sitting at home, the other issue is that you're making films on a cinematic stand for a theatrical standard. But then when people watch them on substandard TV, or conversely on TVs that are too good quality for the visual effects that you're creating, actually they can look really bad. And at least when you go to the cinema, when you're making films for cinema, you know that what people are watching is what you've intended them to see and the quality that you've intended to see them. But yeah, sorry, skipping around a bit there. But I think we do need to. I think there does need to be a change in approach to cinema. And I quite liked the Disney idea. I don't know if it's the answer, but at least it gives us something that's different and might drive more people. And if Disney take up that as an initiative, who knows, you know, maybe Netflix will open something as well that's like a mini Netflix world where people can go. And I guess it's about getting people more engaged. If that's the point of making films, is getting your audience engaged and talking about it and looking up stuff afterwards and discussing about it, then, you know, giving them an arena in which to do so is probably, you know, is what we should be striving for.
And I agree with everything you said. It's very on the point and spot on. And what I want to do last is tell that in the end, at the end of the day, to me, it all boils down to investment. And this is where I get the most pessimistic, because I never invested in my cinema, in my local cinema. I never invested in a brand of cinema, a cinema chain. Today, we are back to the big days of the studios when you had the new Warner Brothers films, the new Disney film. Today, there's the new Netflix film. I invested in my life in directors, the new David Fincher film, the new Steven Spielberg film. That, yes, but these people now, they are on platforms as well. They are not exclusively in cinemas. So, you know, I can consume that content everywhere. And when I asked the question to my daughter, and you know, she doesn't trust curators in cinemas because she doesn't know them. She invested a lot in her social media. So she has influencers there where she invested and she trusts them. And she invested in her platform, namely Netflix or Disney Plus, because the algorithm is investment. She watches stuff and then the algorithms know and suggest more stuff to her that is just for her. And that's investment. When she goes to a cinema, she goes to the jungle. She goes to a place where someone else that she doesn't know, that doesn't know her, has curated a certain amount of films on a certain amount of screens, very limited, and hoping that there will be in that selection a film for her. That's just too much to ask. She knows that intrinsically. She knows that in her intuition. She doesn't know that theory, but she knows that this place has nothing to do with her, and that's enough for her not to go.
Yeah. Jay, maybe do you have any final? We're sort of we're a little bit running over time here, so Jay, maybe we'll thank you for Domenico. Do you have any final pearls of wisdom?
Not really. I would just say that I think that connecting with the audience is the most important thing to get people to go back to cinema. Don't be too wowed by everybody on social media saying that you can be targeted and that you are they know exactly what you want, because I feel like a lot of those social media platforms don't have the key to the castle in terms of reaching people through algorithms. I think that there is still you are still able to choose what you want to watch, and you should you should go to the cinema as much as possible.
Amen. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the audience. Thanks for the questions. And as Jay said, go to support your local cinema. That's how you can at least help start the ball rolling in the right direction. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.